Recording your audio.
Yep.
Perfect. 3, 2. On today's show, Memphis finds another way to win without Ja Morant. How good is that squad? Plus, Miami melts down again against the team that doesn't have their stars. And we'll be playing our favorite game every single week, Count It Up, where we play the most fun, interesting things in the NBA. Nick Angstadt, PatTheDesigner on today's Locked On NBA. Let's go.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome. You're locked on to the NBA. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of the Locked On Mavericks podcast. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Remember, Locked On NBA is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Subscribe to the show. Watch daily. We've got great stuff every single day. Plus, our Locked On Now podcast is there. And joining me for the first time, the new co-host of Locked On Bulls, PatTheDesigner. What you got for me, Pat?
Hey, man, I'm just glad to be here. Glad that it was a great night of basketball, and I didn't have to watch my Bulls get blown out.
Always a good night when like the thing that you're hating the most just continues to happen.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Great night in the association. 11 games on the docket. We have no time to try and get into anything else.
Yeah.
First up, the Brooklyn Nets got news that Kyrie Irving is going to be able to play in home games soon, or they think he's going to be playing in home games soon. Ordinance has changed. They're making an exception for athletes, entertainers, things like that. So Kyrie Irving should soon be able to play in home games. That does not make him eligible for games in Toronto, though. So that's still on the table for playing games. But Kyrie Irving scores 43. KD goes off for 35, 11, and 8. But it did not matter, Pat. Ja Morant out for the Memphis Grizzlies. They end up going down. Brooklyn went down 18. Then they outscored Memphis 24-13 to end the third quarter. And it didn't matter because Memphis just came back. And this team has just proven to be time and time again so resilient. They find a way to get the lead back in the fourth quarter and just go on a run and keep it. It was incredible to watch this team, to see this team with Dylan Brooks back, scoring 21 points, playing good defense himself. Jaren Jackson playing incredible defense. You had some more scoring from Desmond Baines hitting 6 threes. You had DeAnthony Melton hitting 6 threes. Brandon Clark with big buckets in the fourth quarter. Like, this team just finds new ways to win every single day.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, man. When you mentioned the defense, watching that game, they were on a string. They were in front. Now, listen, Kyrie Irving is a savant on the offensive end, and he's absolutely going to be somebody that can get it going no matter what. On his 30th birthday, by the way, getting the job done, dropping big buckets. But it's one of those things about timely buckets, how you make things tough on Kyrie, when you make things tough on Kyrie. Kyrie kind of had spurts where he was getting a ton of buckets at a time, and then you would see Memphis adjust. You would see, and defensively, they continued to adjust. And once they kind of got a hold of that lead, Brooklyn tried to fight their way back into it, but it just wasn't enough. And I got to give kudos to Jaren Jackson. Got to give kudos. And, of course, just knocking down shot after shot is Desmond Bane, the big fella who, hey, if y'all watch the post-game show of that where he's getting interviewed by Malika Andrews, nobody wanted to square up with him. That's all you need to know about Desmond Bane.
He's like, yeah, let me flex and run through this mob. And everyone's like, yeah, sure, Desmond. Whatever you want to do, man. Like, go for it. Do we believe in this Memphis team? Because I've had a hard time all year. And yes, I cover the Mavs and I look at them and I say, man, I just don't believe this team can like win a title this year, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about, how good this team has been since January 1st. Best record in the NBA, Grizzlies. Or since, Grizzlies 12-2. Like, this Grizzlies team has been so good in this stretch. One of the best records in the NBA since the turn of the year. And I still kind of don't believe them, and I don't know why. Why do I not believe in this team?
I think it's just we don't believe in youth and inexperience, but I think the days of that is over with. You know what I'm saying? Like, listen, you added Chris Paul to a team that was filled with youth and inexperience, and right now, without Chris Paul on that team in Phoenix, they're still killing the game. You got a lot of that down here in Memphis as well. Memphis came in, and just having that playoff experience from last season, having that little taste of it really propelled them. They already had the talent in place. They added some nice pieces in the offseason. I really think that just looking at this Memphis team, you look at what they did tonight. That's this team on a normal basis defensively. And then you throw the fact that Ja Morant is on top of that. Like to me, this Memphis team reminds me of those Denver Nuggets teams we always talked about as, hey, they're good, but they don't really have a superstar, except this team has a superstar in Ja Morant. And I think, to me, they are a championship contender. And I think they're a real threat that if they can get through the Phoenix Suns and the Golden State Warriors, they're a real threat to win the championship, because this is the class of the Eastern Conference, whether they're in the 8th seed or not. And you saw, and they've lost 5 straight to Memphis in this series. So you saw how they've handled that.
You're saying that Steven Adams is the Chris Paul of this situation, that he's the veteran that got added?
I mean, hey, listen. I love me some Steven Adams. I'm not gonna lie to you. He's an anchor down low, but for me, just having that Ja Morant type player, that superstar that you can rely on, that you can lean back on, with a bunch of guys that are really good players. Steven Adams really good. Jaren Jackson really good.
They've proven to win on their own. They've won a ton of games without Ja Morant.
Yeah, and then throw Ja back on that. They're 15-2 without Ja Morant in the lineup. So I love this Memphis team. I love Ja Morant. I'm riding with them. I think they have a real shot at the title this season.
Another team that thought they had a shot at the title is the Miami Heat. They may still have it, but they lose 104-118 to the Golden State Warriors. So let's give our shout outs to the Golden State Warriors for now. They were without Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. Obviously, James Wiseman's still out. Andre Iguodala's still out. And they got contributions, 22 points from Wiggins, Kuminga, 22 points from Damian Lee, 30 points from the guy Jordan Poole, 7 threes for him, 9 assists for Jordan Poole. They just had a collective effort where they just they played the game that they had been playing before Klay Thompson came back. This team feels like they have 2 modes. It was like before Klay and then after Klay, after Klay, because they were trying to get him integrated back. And then all of a sudden shot numbers started going down for all these guys. Poole got less shots. Wiggins got less shots. And this is a game where everybody gets all the shots they want, and then they win in this resounding fashion against this Heat team.
I mean, we talked about the defense of Memphis, the defense of the Golden State Warriors. These young guys were out there legitimately clamping up everything the Miami Heat wanted to do. Yeah, the scores look nice when you look at it. Jimmy Butler with 25, or Kyle Lowry with 26, Bam Adebayo with 25, Jimmy Butler with 20. But if you watch the flow of that game, it was hard buckets the entire time. The Golden State Warriors did an excellent job defensively, and you got Jordan Poole on the other side, who's a guy who got a ton of the tick when Klay Thompson was out. So he's got the experience now. He's got the, hey, listen, I know what to do when I get in the game. He's not confused coming into the game. So seeing him flourish tonight was not surprising to me at all. Seeing him knock down some of the threes that he knocked down, not gonna lie, some of those were like, hey, take the ball, and he's like bailing it out. It banks off. He did it like twice in a row. Like, okay, it's your night. You're being ridiculous right now, Jordan Poole. Relax a little bit, brother.
Chill, Jordan.
Yeah.
Someone else that may need to chill. Third quarter, the Warriors built a 19-point lead. They go on a 13-0 run to start. It ends up being a 19-0 run to start the third quarter. 13-0 run to start. Timeout is called. Miami goes into a timeout, and they do this thing. They've been doing this thing, and a lot of teams do this, where the coaches kind of talk over here, and they let the players just sort of talk amongst themselves, especially a veteran team like this. You got, Haslam that's been there for 4 decades or whatever. Jimmy Butler, Kyle Lowry, they're the veteran guys that have been around. And all of a sudden, Jimmy Butler and Udonis Haslam just start getting into it. They just start, there's fingers being pointed. Jimmy Butler's being held back. Udonis Haslam is standing up. And then all of a sudden, Spo comes back in. It's Erik Spoelstra, the head coach of the Miami Heat, gets back into the huddle, and he starts jawing at Jimmy Butler, and they start going back and forth. And there's just, to me, hilarious videos going around of Spo saying, you want to fight me? You want to fight me? Just like going back and forth with Jimmy Butler. Markieff Morris is holding back Erik Spoelstra. What kind of a situation and an altercation you have to be in for Markieff Morris to be the holding back guy? After the game, Bam Adebayo said, on seeing Butler and Udonis Haslam go at it, quote, "We're brothers. We're going to get through this. This is us at practice." So it just so happened that it happened in a game. Yeah. Good sign or bad sign that this is just normal every day for the Miami Heat?
This has always been Jimmy Butler. He told you when he was in Philly, this is the kind of animosity that he thrives off of in practice. It can't figure out why. Tom Thibodeau screaming at him the entire time. Joakim Noah ready to break his neck every turn. You know what I'm saying? I can't understand why Jimmy Butler's this way.
I love when Bulls fans start talking about Tibbs. Big Dave used to do it all the time. And
yeah,
like,
it's just I can't understand why Jimmy's such an angry guy sometimes. But I fully get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is absolutely Jimmy Butler in practice. I have no doubt this is how the Miami Heat's practices go. We already have heard that Jimmy goes at Bam the same way. I think this was a lack of respect, though. You kind of hear where Jimmy kind of a little bit gets out of line. There's another video where it's behind somebody Snapchatting it, I think.
Yeah, we're going deep in like lip reading and trying to
you know what I'm saying? No, I'm literally tagging people on Twitter like, somebody explain to me what Spo said here. And I think it was the same thing you said. You want to fight, you're mad that I won't fight you. And you see Jimmy say something back, and it's at that point you see UD kind of step in and be like, hey, listen, we're not doing that. You want to fight somebody, we can go back to the locker room. It's whatever you want to do. You want to fight somebody, fight me, and I will F you up. I want you to understand that. You know what I mean? So, like,
whose money? What do you have money on?
That's UD setting the line. And those are moments to me where, like, I looked at that and I was like, I could absolutely see Miami coming back and winning this game after something like that happens. You know what I'm saying? They don't end up doing it. Golden State holds on to it, gets the job done behind some great shooting from Jordan Poole, like I said. But those moments for me, looking at that team, I fully think that, hey, that's the kind of Miami Heat practices. I could see them going on a run after this, and that being the moment that sparks this whole thing, just because it's so public now.
Didn't happen in this one. Now they've lost a game, back-to-back games. The Sixers without Joel Embiid and Harden, and now the Warriors without their big three.
Yeah.
Maybe just 2 trap games, but definitely something to monitor with this Miami team and how they respond after this dust up, because everyone's going to be talking about this. No one's been talking about Miami, it feels like, all year, but now this is the thing that's going to get people to start talking about it, and I'm really interested to see how they respond.
Don't be surprised if this isn't strategic either. I think they're trying to avoid Brooklyn at all costs. I'm not going to lie to you. Don't be surprised if this ain't a little bit strategic.
A little tank action?
They say throw a little fight in there, you know what I'm saying? Make it look good, make it look like we're fighting for this thing. Ringo on the Windy City Breeze is a Miami guy. He's like, we're trying to avoid him at all costs. I'm not gonna lie to you. We're trying to drop. We're trying to drop. Second seed would be great.
A team that wants the second seed, that wants the first seed, wants all of it. Boston Celtics, we'll talk about them versus Utah. Boston, just an absolute dominating performance. Are they a contender now? We'll talk about them and more coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about something you need in your life, and it's called Truebill. Truebill has you covered for all of your subscriptions. I know I have these subscriptions all the time, and I forget about them. I sign up for a trial. I'm like, oh, sure, Paramount Plus. I'll use that. I never use it, and then all of a sudden I have it for a while. Truebill is a new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't want, need, or simply forgot about. On average, they help people save up to $720 a year. Pat, you could use $720, right? I could use $720.
Who can't?
Who can't use that? Don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. You got to go right now to Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. It could save you thousands a year. Their concierges are there to help you. They'll cancel your subscriptions for you. How easy is that? Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. Also, new sponsor of the channel, NBA Top Shot. Yes. You guys remember NBA Top Shot, right? People were getting all worked up about the packs and about collecting. Hey, you can get into that too. It's not just something for the people that can stand in line and go to the events and all that. NBA Top Shot is the officially licensed NFT of the NBA. They connect a community with hundreds of thousands of NBA fans as a natural progression of fantasy sports, a way to upgrade your experience. They have all kinds of games and stuff now. There's fantasy elements into it. You go there, you check out some of these moments, you buy some packs, and you never know. You could get a pack of, a Zach LaVine great moment, a DeMar DeRozan game winner. You could get the Spencer Dinwiddie game winner. They are popping packs all the time and trying to get new moments. You want to own that moment. You want to check out Top Shot. So go check it out. They have challenges. It's the best way to earn exclusive moment NFT rewards. You can complete challenges, participate in the fantasy element of it. And if you sign up today, the best way to start is by getting yourself a starter pack. Just start straight up. If you can pull an NFT superstar like LeBron, KD, Luka, stars, rookies like Cade or Evan Mobley just for $9. If you didn't pull your favorite player from the starter pack, you can snag moments from the marketplace. People are selling stuff all the time. Go check it out. NBA Top Shot. taking it to the top. All right, Pat the Designer. Let's get into the rest of the games in the association. A lot of stuff happening. The Utah Jazz, they did have a lead. They had a 2-point lead early in this game, but Boston took control at the 10-minute, 42-second mark in the first quarter, and Pat, they never turned back. They never looked behind them. They just kept going on ahead. This is what this Boston team has done. They are now, they have an incredible record in March. I think they have one loss, and I think it may be to a team in Dallas. Yeah. But this team is just playing incredible basketball right now. Jason Tatum, his last 10 games, 34 points, 7 boards, 5 assists on average, shooting 53, 45, 90. 54 to 90, but better than that. Boston is 9-1 in their last 10 games. Boston didn't miss a shot in this game until the 4-minute mark of the first quarter. Basically, the first 8 minutes of this game, they didn't miss a shot. They started out 28-2 or 28-12, and they didn't look back. Boston, are they a finals contender? Are you believing in Boston after they started not so great at the beginning of the year?
I don't know if I'd say that they're a finals contender just yet. You know what I'm saying? If you look at the Boston streak, they've beaten a lot of teams. They've been dominant going down this stretch. Not to take anything away from them. You can only beat the teams that are on your schedule. But there was a lot of teams that were subpar that can get you moving in the right direction. And it worked out for them at the time of season for their schedule that they did. Coming into tonight's game, Utah's a very beatable team, dog. Utah's one of those teams that I look at. My Bulls didn't beat them. But Utah's one of those teams that I look at as a like they're good enough to be competitive, but they're not good enough to put them over the top.
Say the F word. Say the F word. They're frauds.
You know what?
You ready? Are you going there?
I don't like saying fraud. Like, that's the new thing around the NBA, right? Like, yes. Oh, they're frauds.
Who's a fraud?
Like,
right.
They're a 4th seed. They beat 40-something teams this year. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to say they're a fraud. They just might not be a championship contender. There's levels to this, baby. We working our way up. You know what I'm saying? But the Boston Celtics are working their way through those levels, and this is the thing. Games like this absolutely help you moving forward. Would I see them in the finals? I think there's a lot of tough competition in the Eastern Conference. You got to go through Boston. I don't know if they have the firepower or go through Boston. You got to go through Brooklyn. I don't know if they have the firepower to get through Brooklyn. I think Miami could play them really well. I think that the Bulls in a first-round matchup would actually play them really well. I understand we're going through some tough times right now, but I still think that we would match up with them really well. And to me, like, to say that they're a finals contender, they got a lot more teams to beat, and they got to beat a lot more teams that are better than the Utah Jazz. I'm not going to lie to you.
They more wins than anybody but the Heat in the Eastern Conference. Like this team and they started not that, right? At one point they were out of the play-in. This team they were playing so bad. I believe in this Boston Celtics team now. Like, they have convinced me at this point, the way that they've played, because I think they have enough answers for all the things that you're going to want in a playoff series. The way that this team can defend, that changes something for you in the playoffs, right? Because then all of a sudden you have, all right, we can throw out a lineup with both Horford and Rob Williams, right? Yeah. Time Lord out there and Al Horford as bigs out there. Hey, guess what? We can take either of those guys out and play Tatum and Brown at those 4 spots. We can play Marcus Smart on almost anybody on defense, right? They have all these different guys that they can throw out there to defend. And then as long as Tatum is shooting the way that he is and Brown can score on a secondary level and they get contribution from just like one other guy, they can win pretty much any game that they're in. I believe in them because I'm starting to not believe in this Heat team. I'm starting to not believe in the Sixers team. The Bulls team hasn't beat anybody in the top 3 yet this season at all. The Bucks I'm waiting on the Bucks to finally like come out and say, hey, this is us. Like, that's the one team that I think could definitely beat the Celtics. But other than that, I'm like, hey, in a 7-game series, anything can happen. And I'm starting to believe in this Celtics team.
I think the big question mark with the Celtics is still the same question mark has been. We see Marcus Smart, but the real question for me is who's going to be that point guard that settles them down, that leads the way for them. You know what I'm saying? Like, I look at this team and I look at the team. It sounds good, but to me, I look at a lot of the guys around the league that they're going to have to guard. Listen, Jason Tatum's got to be a real cog defensively going up against Kevin Durant. When you're playing Kevin Durant on the other side of that thing, if you get to that point, You know what I'm saying? It's not as easy to do it on the offensive end and keep being the facilitator and the shooter and the dominant scorer and the guy that's breaking defenses down when you got to defend the best player in the NBA on the other side of that. Same thing goes against Giannis. Same thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot more load that comes in the playoff, especially when it comes into a half-court set. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see this Boston team. I think not having that guy at the point guard position that I'm like, yeah, that's the dominant player right there. I think that's gonna hurt them in the playoffs.
Absolutely. Speaking of getting hurt in the playoffs, the Utah Jazz lose this game. They just did not come out and have anything. They shot 22% from three. Mitchell had 37. Nobody else really seemed to make an impact. Rudy Gobert just had 0 blocks in this game. He was a -10, which is like it was the highest plus minus of anybody in the starting lineup. But we're grasping at straws at this point. Now, Utah loses. The Dallas Mavericks beat the Houston Rockets without Luka Doncic. Dinwiddie and Brunson just took over in this game. They have become the duo that has been awesome to be this, second and tertiary ball handlers off of Luka. And so now Utah and the Mavs are tied. Pat, who's finishing with home court advantage, and who would you pick in a playoff series right now? Utah versus the Mavs.
Now, this is not just to hype you up because you're on here from Locked On Mavs. Shout out to that great podcast. Go give that a listen.
Hey.
The Dallas Mavericks. And for the reason that they're, for some reason in Dallas, and you can speak to this better than I can, is a stigma that when players play there, they disappear like it's New Orleans or it's one of these. And it's not. Like, Luka Doncic is one of the best players, if not arguably the best player in the NBA this season. We haven't even heard his name mentioned in MVP conversation. And Luka wasn't there tonight.
Nope.
And they dominated the game. You know what I'm saying? Granted, versus a Houston Rockets team that basically is just like, we give up. We're sorry we even showed up to this game. You can have the win. But
their offense felt like that in the third quarter.
Oh, yeah. It's bad out there. You know what I'm saying? That's another thing. Don't get me started on the tankathon that has become. That's just a joke out there in Houston with what they're doing. But I think the biggest thing for you guys, and weirdly enough, right, I feel like this is the most even trade we saw at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
You guys getting back Spencer Dinwiddie is huge. Takes the pressure off of what Luka actually has to do, and then he can still do it, and he still has the ability to do it. Spencer Dinwiddie coming out tonight with 26 points on 8 for 13 shooting and 4 for 6 from the three-point line. I'm so happy that Spencer Dinwiddie is finally getting his chance to start and shine consistently, and I think that I would go with this Mavs team over Utah any day. But like I said, the Utah team is confusing. Like, Rudy Gobert is a great piece in the middle, but if I got a big that shoots threes, I just negated Rudy Gobert. Like, if I got a team of 3-point shooters, guess what? Rudy Gobert doesn't become a factor in this anymore. So, like, to me, I'd have to go with your Mavs over getting the home court advantage.
I would as well. We talked a lot about Spencer Dinwiddie on Locked On Mavs today. So if you want to go check out that show, go listen to that. But yeah, and I think that home court is available for either of these teams, right? And honestly, the way the Warriors are playing, and with Steph still out, like it's not impossible for those two teams to make up 3 games. So this is not locked in as the 4-5, but it has been for a while. And so that's going to be an interesting matchup. I'm looking forward to my crossover episode before the playoffs with David Locke, my boss. I'm looking forward to that. That'll be interesting. But yeah, Mavs get a win. Jazz lose. They're tied now for 4-5, and we'll see what happens moving forward. And moving forward for us, coming up, Phoenix does a thing that Phoenix does, and I've got a name for it. And this team is just absolutely incredible. And then we'll play our favorite game every single week,
Count it up,
where we counted up the most interesting, fun things in the NBA around the night tonight. We'll talk about that and more coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about Bet Online. All the props, odds, and lines that you want. College basketball is here. They have all kinds of stuff that you can go check out. Go check out all the lines and stuff that they have right now. You can check out, there's baseball stuff. They're baseball odds. Baseball is back at this point. That is insane. That is insane to me that baseball is now back. It never felt like they were going to come over. Okay. Over under the number of number 1 seeds that will reach the Final Four. 1.5. Under. So just 1. So you think number 1 makes it?
Yeah.
NCAA tournament most outstanding player. Drew Timme is plus 400. You got Chet Holmgren's plus 1,200. Jaden Ivey's plus 1,400. A couple other guys in there. Where's the guy from Saint? Where's the guy from Saint Peter?
As they're on their historic
Where's
run.
Doug? He's not on here. Paolo Banchero's on here, plus 3,300. Lots of other stuff you can check out at BetOnline. They have it all covered for you. Head to the website today. Use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts and it don't end. All right, Pat, more games in the NBA. Lots of stuff to still get to. Having fun here on a Thursday. Locked on NBA. The Phoenix Suns beat the Minnesota Timberwolves. And if you looked at the final score, you would say, oh, it's just, the Suns coasted to a victory. And it was just a normal Suns game, 125 to 116. They just went out there and scored. They're one win away from 60 wins. Which is, if you look at the amount of games that like Chris Paul has played and Booker and Ayton, like the amount of games they've played together, that just doesn't seem possible. But this is a game where Minnesota led for 40 minutes. Yeah. How mad would you be if you led this game for 40 minutes and then you end up losing it by double digits or almost double digits. Yeah, double digits. And so you look at this game in the fourth quarter, Ayton at 11, Booker at 11, Shamet had 10 points. On Minnesota's side, Beasley had 10 points in the fourth quarter. No one else on Minnesota even had over 4 points in the fourth quarter. That's Towns, that's Ayton, that's D'Angelo Russell. None of those guys had over 4 points. Ayton finished with a career high 35 points. And I'm calling this thing where the Suns are kind of like hanging around, but they just aren't winning. And then all of a sudden they just blitz you in the fourth quarter. I'm calling it a sunburn. The Timberwolves got sunburned in this game. 15 times this season. Yeah. Phoenix was losing at the end of the third quarter and came out and won the game at the end. Phoenix has not lost a game this season when they're winning after the third quarter. The fourth quarter is owned by this Phoenix Suns team, and they're my favorite to win the title right now. There's just nobody else that's close to them the way that they've played this year.
I would say that, I got a little more love for Memphis than you do, but looking at this Phoenix team and how they're able to come back, how resilient they are, how they're always looking to fight their way back into this thing, man, like, it almost feels like they're making the game entertaining for them, doesn't it? Like we hear about Michael Jordan back in the day, how the Bulls would just be like, oh yeah,
he makes up players,
let them kind of win, yeah, and they're just doing stuff, let them, and then when we need to win, throw Jordan back in there, see what happens. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of how this feels with this Phoenix Suns team at this point. But I mean, looking at this game tonight, I'm not surprised that Phoenix won this game. Nobody should be surprised that Phoenix won this game. Minnesota's defense has been awful all season. They've been up and down. I mean, I'm not surprised that Phoenix went on a run in this game to close it out at the very end. Like,
Minnesota has been going on this run since December. Their defense is 11th in the NBA. And when I saw that, I was shocked because I thought the same thing as you. I'm like, this defense is terrible. They've actually been playing really good defense, but when it matters, it doesn't feel like this team can like lock up, right? It doesn't feel like this team can lock up, and it doesn't feel like it. To me, it doesn't feel like Cat and D'Lo and Ant Edwards are mature enough in their career yet, or they just aren't the type of players that are going to step up in these big moments. When the Mavs played them the other night, it just didn't feel like anybody stepped into that moment, right? Towns, it felt like he tried to at times against the Mavs, but in this game, it just didn't feel like anybody was really going out there and trying to win, except for Beasley. Beasley's the guy on out there. I'll take shots. Like, I'll take all the shots.
And that's
three shots three shots for Edwards, 1 shot for Towns in the fourth quarter. Like, what are we doing?
Well, that's the thing to me. You look at this game and who has to be your guys that lock it down? They have to be your leaders on the team. Right now, your leaders are Ayton. Right now, your leaders are Towns and
Russell and Edwards.
People's names.
I mean, it's Pat Beverly's like their leader. Every time out, I was watching Minnesota, and he's the dude that's talking the whole time. He's their leader.
He's their anchor, right? He's their anchor, but you have to have Edwards. You have to have Cat buying in on the defensive end as well for things to work for you. And when DeAndre Ayton could set his career high, 35 and 14, when he comes out and he does that against you as a big man, that's demoralizing.
And this was their plan. They put Jared Vanderbilt against Ayton. And so Ayton had, we keep confusing Cat and Ayton, but Ayton had so many hook shots. Like, he just kept throwing hook shots. Like, I saw somebody tweet out that now this season, Ayton has 1 more hook shot than he's made dunks this year. He has 86 hook shots and 85 dunks this year. I thought that was an incredible stat. But they put Jared Vanderbilt on him because Cat can't handle him. And so they put Cat out on somebody in the corner, and you're like, okay. And Cat even got in foul trouble there. That's, I think, it's a little Trae Youngish where you're trying to develop a defensive scheme against the team where you can't put your big man in the paint. It's just, it messes up your defense away. He's obviously not as bad of a defender as Trae is, but it creates the same sort of problems in that way.
Yeah, for sure. It's a problem when you're big man. We need you out of the paint, dog. Please stop. Go to the corner.
Honestly, go stand in the corner on Jay Crowder. Like, okay.
That's a problem.
That's the problem. Speaking of a problem, the Los Angeles Lakers lose again to the Philadelphia 76ers. James Harden left this game with an injury. We're still waiting on some feedback on that to see what happened with him. But this starts our favorite game every single week.
Count it up, count it up, count it up, count it.
Count it up. The Sixers win this game. You had Joel Embiid going for 30 and 10 with 3 steals, 3 blocks, 3 assists. You had James Harden. He left this game but had 24. You also had Tobias Harris finally with 20 points in this game.
Count it up.
Are you buying Philly?
No.
Count it up. How much are you buying Philly?
No, almost not at all. Philly's one of those teams to me that like it. The trade sounds good. Hey, we're adding James Harden to Joel Embiid, but the pieces that need to be the pieces to make the team work, right? It's not James Harden going at you. And we've seen James Harden in the playoffs. That's not a recipe for success. Your recipe for success might lie in Joel Embiid, but as a team, as you said, tonight, 20 points from Tobias Harris. That's what I need to see every night for me to believe in this Philly team, along with Maxey being able to give you 20-plus points a night. That's what I need to see for this Philly team, for me to buy into this Philly team. If you're talking about James Harden is the player I need to fear, yeah, can James Harden score? Yeah, can James Harden shoot? Absolutely. Can he cross? Yes, absolutely, 100%. But I've seen James Harden in the playoffs. Guess what?
Yep.
What are you going to do when he disappears?
They go back to Joel Embiid. By the way, James Harden did re-enter that game, by the way. He exited with an injury, but he did come back in the game in the fourth quarter. But yeah, I'm not super buying this Philadelphia team either. It's so strange. And you're just depending so much on, first of all, James Harden, but also how many times have we seen Doc Rivers coach teams go into the playoffs and like blow it? So you're banking on those two things. Like you're hoping that those two things are both negatives and they equal out and make a positive in the playoffs. And Joel Embiid's just going to drag them. You're betting on Tobias Harris a lot. You're betting on Tyrese Maxey, like a young player. There's a lot of stuff. If James Harden can't be that guy in the playoffs, and so I'm not betting on them to win the finals. They'll probably win their first series, and they'll probably go to. They may go to the Eastern Conference Finals. I wouldn't be surprised. But if they're in the finals and they play that Suns team or whoever else meets them, I'd be a little surprised for sure.
Yeah, I'd be shocked. And the biggest reason is because you sent the one piece that made Joel Embiid's life a little bit more rested over to Brooklyn to get James Harden back and Andre Drummond. By the way, he had 15 and 5 tonight in 27 minutes.
Yeah, I'm not sure that DeAndre Jordan is going to be that backup that's going to make Joel Embiid feel any better about not being on the floor. He had a dunk in this game where he slammed it on the Lakers and he goes, oh, he's like screaming his head off. And I'm like, what are you proving to anybody right now? Like you were on the Lakers team at the beginning of the year and they didn't want you and they need a center real bad.
I don't know. And you saw like the Lakers look at him like, for real, dude?
Like really? Like, dude, we know you're washed. Speaking of being washed, these two franchises, Orlando versus OKC, the tankathon battle of all tankathon battles. Orlando wins the tankathon battle. OKC wins the game. SGA, Josh Giddey, Lou Dort, Ty Jerome, and Jeremiah Robinson Earl were all out for OKC. Jalen Suggs, Wendell Carter Jr., obviously, Fultz and Jonathan Isaac are still out for Orlando. So everybody's sitting guys all over the place. OKC came in on a 10-game losing streak, but Orlando bailed them out early in the fourth quarter. And then Orlando was like, hey, we're done. We're just going to play Mo Wagner and whoever else, guys whose names I don't remember. All right.
Count it up.
Are you a tank guy or are you don't press the basketball gods for lottery luck type of guy?
This is my thing, right? Like the NBA's got to find a way to fix this. Like, if your team's bad, your team's bad. If you don't have the talent to win, you don't have the talent to win. I shouldn't be looking at games that don't have the bad players already on the team that might give you a chance to win. I am so far away from a tank guy because it's the thing. You're adding a really good player, maybe, somebody that's a game-changing player to a team that sucks. Doesn't make that big of a difference until you add about 4 or 5 of them to them. She's talking about 5 years of sucking. I've always said that the NBA needs to fix the whole tank thing. Man, there's no way. We're talking about right ankle soreness. What's he got?
That right ankle soreness is now the I'm sitting because I don't.
Oh yeah,
Luka, that's what they did to Luka.
Groin. Yeah, I'm saying that's the new rest, so you don't get fined for it. Oh, he's got a groin, a knee sprain, right ankle soreness. How'd he get it? Ate cereal that morning.
Okay, did I make this name up or is this a real guy? Played 12 minutes in the fourth quarter for Orlando. Mark Doughton. Did I make the name up or is that a real player that played?
Real guy.
Oh, wait, where is my... That's a false guy. His name is Jeff Doughton, and he played 12 minutes for the Orlando.
I was going by the last name, dog. I was going by the last name. I knew Doughton was in there.
Honestly, I've never heard of it. I cover the NBA. That if I paid for that game, if I'm an Orlando Magic fan, I paid for that. And I saw that guy play the whole fourth quarter. I'd be like,
hey, I'm gonna tell you this right now. If you're an Orlando Magic fan and you paid for that game, you knew what you were getting. You shouldn't have. You spent money on the Orlando Magic.
Orlando Magic games, only company boxes. Okay, only company seats, right? Like only
at this
seats,
point,
only giveaway seats.
They need to get him away for charity.
Sacramento versus the Indiana Pacers came down to the wire in this one. Damian Jones was the answer for the Sacramento Kings. And Pat, if Damian Jones is the answer, what was the question?
What are we doing here?
Sacramento Kings get a win. 25 points for Davion Mitchell, though.
Count it up.
How real is Davion Mitchell? 28 points in his last game against the Phoenix Suns and a 3-point loss. Now he has a 25-point game with 7 assists against the Indiana Pacers. How much do you believe and how much are you buying in Davion Mitchell?
You know what? I like Davion Mitchell. I don't know if he'll be a superstar at some point, but the young fella absolutely is belongs in this league and plays in this league. I've gotten to see him firsthand go up against my Bulls and really, I mean, it got to a point where I was like, is he related to Donovan? They kind of look alike. They kind of play the similar style. They kind of attack the same way. And some of those shots looked awful, horrible shot selection at times as well. But I mean, I believe that his game translates well to the modern NBA. I think that he's one of those players that could be something that Sacramento's like, hey, listen, we pair this with what we've already got in the building. We might be moving in the right direction as soon as next season. I like that Alvin Gentry's giving the young fella a shot.
He also defends. He defends so hard, and he's a guy that, you know, I would assume him kind of like that, right? Like he's a guard that'll defend, and you're like, okay, I got something with this, and I can move forward. So I'm buying him a little bit. Yeah, I don't know if he's going to be an all-star. It's obviously too early to tell at this point, but that's an interesting piece that Sacramento has. Next game, a team with some interesting pieces. Not too many. Portland Trailblazers lose 96 to 133 to the Spurs. San Antonio's leading scorer was DeJounte Murray with 28 points. They score 133. They got 26 from Keldon Johnson, 16 from Devin Vassell, 16 from Jakob Poeltl, 15 off the bench from Josh Richardson. Josh Richardson playing on the Spurs still, man. Yep. These two situations, though, are so different. The starting lineup for that Portland Trailblazers team is just that's one where I get like when you start talking
out there. I saw you on the court. Yeah, you were in the corner.
When you start talking about tanking, I'm like, man, that starting lineup for Portland is just one of those. But going forward,
Count it up.
What situation would you rather be the head coach of? This Spurs team with DeJounte Murray, a young all-star, Keldon Johnson, a young budding star. He had 5 threes in this game. Josh Primo, young, really, really young guy that they're developing. A couple other interesting pieces, Devin Vassell, Jakob Poeltl. Or would you rather be the coach of the Portland Trailblazers? And next year, Dame's coming back. Josh Hart will be there. You got a couple of guys that you can maybe rely on. Anthony Simons, young, interesting guy. Nasir Little, Nurkic maybe. And they're trying to make some moves. Who would you rather be the head coach of next year?
Me personally, I'd rather be the head coach of the Spurs. I think that Devin Vassell is a really good player that's underrated. He was somebody that I wanted my Bulls to draft. They end up going with his teammate Patrick Williams, but he was somebody in college that shot the ball legitimately 50% from the field, 45% from the three-point line, and he slowly, as he's gotten more tick, you're starting to see him kind of develop into that player we saw in college. On top of that, I've already got DeJounte Murray. On top of that, I've already got Jakob Poeltl. Don't look at the fact that he got dunked on nasty by Ja Morant. Don't look at that. Don't look at that. He's actually a really good player. He's
6
actually
blocks
somebody
in this
who's
game.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? He's actually somebody who's a very efficient player. He had 16 and 9 tonight. And I think you have some really nice young pieces. And on the Portland side, I wouldn't want to be the coach of that because the ownership and the direction and the GM that's pushing, they're about to build the same team. Like Portland has never been known for, hey, let's go get that great free agent acquisition. Portland is a team that has to do it internally. They're about to put Anthony Simons next to Damian Lillard.
He's been the understudy for CJ McCollum, and now he's stepping up and he's getting his day on Broadway. The same,
and he's
going to
be CJ McCollum. Like, not to say that that's a bad player or a bad thing, but that doesn't lead to success when you got Damian Lillard standing next to you. They're similar players, unless Dame's all of a sudden going to say, yeah, I'm done playing point. Let me play the 2 guard, and I'm just going to start chucking these things out, which we know is not going to happen. I mean, I wouldn't want to be the head coach of Portland. Chauncey, my heart goes out to you, brother. I'm sorry that was your first opportunity. I mean, you wanted it. It's on you. You said hire me, but
did want it.
I'm sorry, Chauncey.
Ben McLemore's lead you in scoring today, Chauncey. So shout out.
Yeah, that's when you know it's bad.
Last 2 games in the NBA, Atlanta loses to Detroit. What is this Atlanta team doing? They lose 101 to 122 in this game. You have Trae Young still, no John Collins. No John Collins, no Danilo Gallinari. They still lose to this Pistons team. Pistons have been frisky recently. That team has been a team nobody wants to play right now.
Yeah.
21 points and 8 boards, 4 assists for Jeremy Grant. Bunch of guys coming off the bench with double digits for the Pistons. But we look at this Atlanta team, and then you also look at the last game in the NBA. Charlotte loses to the Knicks. Charlotte goes out there, and they lose to the Knicks 106 to 121. LaMelo Ball tried his damnedest. 32 points. 9 boards, 5 assists for him, but they couldn't get it done against the New York Knicks. RJ Barrett, 30 points for him. He's been playing great. And Obi Toppin had a pretty good game in this one. But if you look at those 2 teams, Atlanta and Charlotte, they're still slated to play in that play-in game. It feels like we've been waiting for this play-in game for all season because they've just been sitting there.
Yeah.
Count it up.
How confident are you that either of these teams? What's your confidence meter on either of these teams? Where are you leaning right now? Is it more towards Atlanta or more towards Charlotte?
Atlanta to me is, I mean, good job beating the Knicks the other night and hyping that up. Nice job on social media with that. But
and then
Atlanta
coming out and losing to the Pistons.
Yeah, and then they lose to the Pistons. You know what I'm saying? Like we hyped that up. Let's see the highlights from this game. But I'm not a believer in Atlanta mostly because they lost John Collins, and that probably is going to be through the play-in. They would, if they were going to get him back. I mean, we'd be talking about in the playoffs already, and I don't think they have enough firepower to get into the playoffs. Charlotte's interesting to me, right? I don't think Charlotte beats a Brooklyn team, but Charlotte's interesting to me, right? Because Charlotte to me matches up really, really well with that Toronto team. So it's a game, dog. It's March Madness in the NBA.
One game for these.
It's a game. Anybody can have a game. I said this on Locked On Bulls. If Brooklyn has 2 bad games, they're out of the playoffs. Y'all realize that, right? Like, if Brooklyn has 2 bad games, they are out of the play. And the one game Kyrie Irving can't play.
Can't play in yet.
The play-in tournament will end in the middle of the tournament if they're losing by halftime. That's what we need to understand. The NBA is not going into the playoffs without Brooklyn. But no, I would say if I had to put my confidence in anybody, the Charlotte team's more entertaining. The Charlotte team to me has more firepower, and they play a little bit better defense, but not.
Yeah,
it's a little bit because you guys got tall guys and they got Trae Young that they're trying to hide.
I still believe in the Hawks, I think.
Really?
Hawks team, they can go in and they can win a game, right? I feel much better about one single game with this Hawks team than I do about if you change it to a series, I maybe feel better about the Hornets. I don't know why. That's just that it's this weird feeling that the Hawks can go in and hey, Trae Young can go and have a game. Yeah. I feel much better about him going and having a game than LaMelo or even Terry Rozier or Bridges or any of those guys. So and then Hawks have been there before. They've been yawning about the regular season all year, and so maybe they turn it on in the playoffs because that's what they've been waiting for. But there you go.
That's what they've been waiting for.
That's what they said at the beginning of the season. They said, we're over the regular season. We're over it. We're over it.
Well, you're under it. You're not over it. You're under it.
It's over you. It is over you.
You know what I'm saying?
Thanks for being locked on NBA. Your first listen every single day. We will be back tomorrow. It's Adam Mares with Wes Goldberg. Great episode on Friday doing the power rankings. Now, make your second listen Locked On Mavs and Locked On Bulls. Go listen to both those shows. Locked On experts like me and Pat covering the biggest stories around the NBA Monday through Friday in 30 minutes or less. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On NBA.